Everyone, I'm Dana Perino, along with Andrea Tanteros, Bob Beckel, Eric Bolling, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. Is America becoming too complacent in the midst of worldwide terror threats? This week, the 9/11 Commission issued its first report in a decade and warned just that. The Commission says that the complacency that led to 9/11 is happening again. The Wall Street Journal's Daniel Henninger warns all the world's chaos is going to get worse. In the next 2 years, many more people are going to die, and not necessarily in the places where they are dying now. Hope alone won't protect Europe or us. And take a look at the cover of the new issue of Time magazine. It reads, Cold War II, the West is losing Putin's dangerous game. Is it time for the U.S. to step up and take charge? Well, Secretary Kerry and President Obama think that we already are.
The facts could not be more clear. The United States of America has never been more engaged in helping to lead in more places than we are now.
We live in a complex world and at a challenging time. And none of these challenges lend themselves to quick or easy solutions, but all of them require American leadership.
But former Defense Secretary Robert Gates thinks the U.S. appears to be disengaging from the world. Listen to him.
I think that there is a perception around the world of the U.S. Disengaging. I know that the administration makes the case of its diplomatic involvement and how busy it is and how involved it is around the world. But look, the reality is withdrawing from or disengaging from two wars, both of which end without a clear-cut victory, is a tricky business to avoid giving the impression you're disengaging from the rest of the world.
Okay, our attempt here in this block is to not get too specific on tactics and try to keep it bigger picture. Let me just start with you, Greg. Do you think America is having a national identity crisis?
I don't know. Maybe. Next. No. America, I think, is falling victim to a number of things. It's entitlement plus distractions, which leads to, I think, a steep decline and making us vulnerable to outside threats. As the government bloats and buys off a population who are distracted by incredible technologies and endless faucets of pop culture, we no longer are paying attention to the threats around us. So as the patient is medicated by these painkillers, which make us happy and dulls our senses, we lose sight of the fact that the world is actually pretty threatening. And then there are people that do not respond to reason. We think that we can somehow convince our enemies to listen to us when actually the only way to get into their thick skulls anything is with a bullet. I mean, extremists do not listen to us.
Another type of bullet is an economic one. And Eric, I wondered what you thought about America's economic position in the world, and is that having an effect on other decisions that we're making or not making?
So the three conflicts that we're talking about, you look at the Ukraine and Russia. I think we've talked about it, quite a bit. Yet we need to step up sanctions against Russia. A way to do that would be with the oil industry and tell them, just in no uncertain terms, we're gonna do what we have to do to drill more here. We're not going to rely on any Middle Eastern oil, any Russian oil, and if we need to help out some European partners of yours, oil trading partners, maybe we'll do that too in the form of sending them crude oil, sending them gasoline products, heating oil, those types of things, not necessarily natural gas. Israel, send them support, military support in the form of intel and technology. We did that with the Iron Dome, continue to help them out with the Iron Dome, things like that. And with the Middle East, I think that's just one where we just need to wait and see what happens. I just, we probably disagree on how to handle the Middle East, but my take on it is the way that really hurt the Middle East the most is, again, frack, drill, and Keystone Pipeline our way out of the Middle East completely.
Economic. Bob, you are wanting to comment on the Time magazine cover, which is asking about the Cold War. And here's how I wanted to frame the question to you, and you can, of course, answer it however you want. But so before it was called the Cold War, in the middle of those first several years, people didn't know exactly what they were in, but they knew that it was that they were having a fight without weapons against the Soviet Union. Are we in some sort of a new phase now that will be named later that we can't exactly pinned down at the moment?
Well, let me just start by saying Mr. Gates, who Secretary Gates, who criticized the administration, when around this table, particularly Greg has made the point about us cutting back in our military, it was Gates' program to cut back in the military. I want to make that point. Secondly, the Time magazine cover is one of the most feckless, ill-informed pieces of journalism and crap I've ever seen. Look, the Cold War was born out of the Second World War. It was the USSR versus the United States. It was very clear-cut. The USSR was big. It was powerful. It had a number of countries that it controlled. It does not now have that. All it has is oil and gas. It is basically a third world country. Its unemployment is unbelievable. And in terms of the economics, look, the world is changed. A lot of countries like India and Brazil have become very strong economically. So we can't expect to control that. But the idea that somehow we're going into a second Cold War, I don't know who did that for Time magazine. We thought it'd be fired.
Do you think, Andrew, that we are entering something that we maybe will, name and brand later on?
Well, there's no question that areas that Russia used to control, it's moving its way back in because there's a perception around the world that U.S. power is receding. And whether you agree with the last two wars or not, right now it appears that we are losing them. And we have a president that's not interested in continue fighting them. That's a fact. When it comes to Ukraine, I don't want American blood and treasure to die in Ukraine. I'm not really sure what our national interests are over there. Our NATO allies are feckless. They're unreliable. So I do think we should stay out. Eric mentioned some really great ways to impose crippling sanctions. But I go back to what I've said before. We have a president that would be better if he didn't draw any red lines than draw them and not enforce them. Instead, a message has been sent that the president cares more about food stamps than fighter jets. And so that's why any bad man living in a hard country somewhere around the world is saying, okay, it's time to flex my muscles because the U.S. Won't do anything. I think he should stick to the Sandra Fluck press conferences. The last thing I want, and I've said this time and time again, is President Obama stumbling into a nuclear war that he doesn't have the guts to fight.
You want to respond? Or
yeah, the idea nuclear war will annihilate this world, so it won't be anybody will be around to fight. The other thing I'd make a point, you made this point about Israel. We give Israel the most high-tech technology we have. When I was in the White House, we sold them the best military equipment we could, and we continue to do that. So and we give them the best intelligence we can. Beyond that, the question is, do we guys involve ourselves on the ground? The answer to that is clearly no.
Go ahead.
Well, everybody says no boots on the ground as if there's a group of people yelling, boots on the ground, boots on the ground. It's the least helpful thing you can say in a chaotic world. It's like telling a misbehaving child that no matter what you do, you will never get spanked. Daddy and Mommy will still give you dessert. We still love you. The world is besieged by a number of really horrible children who rape, who mutilate the innocent. Saying no boots is no comfort to the world's victims. We are here not to wage war. We are here to offer the possibility that we will wage war. If you offer the possibility to wage war, you will not have a war. That's how it works. The idea that we say, we're out of this. We got some problems at home. We got to deal with, these social ills. You guys take care of it. That's not a message you send to around the world where there are people who are dying for freedom.
Well, you're not sending, the message you just said is exactly what we're not sending. We have 600 military bases around the world. We have a 4-ocean navy. We are everywhere we could possibly be. We are not receding. We are cutting back certain things we should be. And I wish we wouldn't be building another aircraft carrier, but we are. I would like to see the evidence that somehow any of those military bases are closed.
Well, I think they should go back and get those missile bases, maybe in Eastern Europe, Poland. I think we should stop saying no boots on the ground, even if we believe that we're not going to do it.
But remember, the president said, and he made the argument to disarm those missile bases in Eastern Europe because he said Iran wasn't a threat. And he's drawing down our military right now. And he's saying there's no war as an option on the table. So why wouldn't you? And it's sad to watch somebody like Putin push around Ukraine. It is sad to watch, but it's not our fight.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you keep saying it's not our fight to every fight, you're going to have
a really... Not every fight.
Yeah.
But not every fight. The policy needs to be, if our allies or if the United States is directly threatened, if it is a national security interest to us or our allies, say, for instance, perhaps Jordan, we would consider it. Then we get involved and we go and we flatten them, we leave. No inky fingers, no democracy building, no, yes, we stand with you in this orgy of ideological, democracy promotion and nation building.
May I just also add another, yes, if you tell your kid you're not going to spank them, they'll misbehave. Try telling your kid you're going to take their iPhone away and they'll get right in line. And so maybe there are other forms of spanking them.
I know.
And yeah, right.
You
economic
like it, though.
spanking,
yes.
sanction spanking.
Yes.
And so I think we're probably in the same ballpark with just the
Greg is
actual
right.
administering of the spankings where we're.
I think Greg is right about the not saying no boots on the ground. The fact is we do have boots on the ground in a lot of places. We just don't make that point enough. And when it comes to, by the way, it was a defense shield. It was not a missile base in Eastern Europe. But nonetheless, it was taken away, and that was very controversial. I understand that. But the reality is that there now are very complex geopolitical issues going on around the world that were not there during the Cold War. And that's something that any country, particularly the United States, is going to have to deal with on a multifaceted way in 20 or 30 different areas of the world. I don't know how you do that I mean, we've spent as much money as we can in the military on intelligence. What more can we do?
Well, can I just agree with everything except that last part? Where you said we've spent as much money as we can on intelligence in the military, what more, a ton more, and we can spend a lot more, and we can be a lot smarter, and we can win any war through our technology and intel. And I think that's probably, in my opinion.
Isn't anyone else a little alarmed by the 9/11 Commission report? They haven't done a report in a decade, and their first one is that basically all the lessons that we learned you've forgotten.
Yeah, it is the product of a short attention span. The fact that we are now living in a world where everything is happening so quickly. The world might actually be more peaceful than it has been, but the amount of atrocities might have decreased, but the reporting of it has increased. So we're feeling the sense that bad things are happening every day, and that maybe we're wrong. However, the desire to pull back, the desire for open borders, hating the NSA, that creates a recipe for terror. And you can't have all three at the same time. You got to be for intelligence, you got to be for borders, and you got to be for a presence. Or they're going to come and get you at some point.
I think the 9/11 report is something to pay attention to. Yeah. Look, before we were dealing with Al-Qaeda, which was much bigger and it was centralized and it had a leadership structure. Now it's in 20 different countries by franchise. That, by definition, presents potential
Not
problems.
only that, but in Syria, they have up to 20,000 foreign fighters that they actually hold Western passports.
Right.
They have gone for training, and they can leave. They can show up in any one of our countries, and we are hamstringing our intelligence to try to track them.
But
the other issue, I think, on Jordan, I haven't had a chance to speak a lot on here, is I just want to make one point on the humanitarian side of things. For the last 2 years, 13 million refugees have entered into Jordan. They doubled their population, and they're all poor, helpless people living in camps. And we do not have a strategy to try to deal with that problem, which will be one that your children, our grandchildren, are going to have to deal with.
And the United States media has been terrible trying to cover that, and it probably lead to the downfall of Jordan as we know it.
Oh, gosh, let's hope not. Okay. We could do more. We can do better than that, right, America? Okay, ahead on the 5, Obama relishes the chance to insult Republicans, but in his mind, he's not really all that partisan. We'll debate that claim next. Plus, the president may have just lost another one of his staunchest supporters. Who's that? Coming up.